Well, hello, Sage Circle Alliance family. As Paul finishes up his chickpeas, which they smell great, Paul. And
Thank you.
Kathleen, her green drink, and I've just got my trusty glass of water here. We're here at another day in this month-long mission of membership and focus on the Sage Circle Alliance. I'm Velyn Hawkins, co-founder of Vegan Visibility Productions, along with my co-host and cohort in crime, Kathleen Gage.
Hello,
And
hello.
you know, it's so amazing that we got surprised today by the presence of Paul Chatlin. And here we also have the amazing Meryl Fury, co-founders of the Sage Circle Alliance. And you know what's nice about today is we get to talk about a subject that I believe is near and dear to all of our hearts, and that's really our children. We don't talk enough about how it is that we may or may not be influencing our children. And today we're really going to be focusing on some things that will help parents, that will help teachers, that will help those who do position themselves, group leaders, scouts, church, other places, who do have the potential to influence children towards better health, towards compassionate living. And that's where we're going to be today, talking about animal environment and environmental activism and how we can get children to light up and draw an interest in these areas, because we all know it's really important. They're the next generation. And if we don't start teaching them now, we have the opportunity to lose them. And I think that where we are now kind of gives credence to the lost generations who are, you know, without compassion for others as much as they are for themselves. And the environment is in distress. People's health is in distress, and the plight of animals we're faced with. So thank you for joining us today, whether you're live or watching the replay. We want you to get engaged with us in this conversation. Leave us comments, subscribe to the YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, and on, where else are we? Facebook and
Instagram and Pinterest and
Everything, TikTok.
We're all over
TikTok
the
and
place.
X and yeah, I think
We get around.
We're like
Yeah,
your
we do.
neighbors. We're there.
And
everywhere.
find our website, sagecirclealliance.org, sagecirclealliance.org. And all of those social media connections are there on the website at just the click of a button, and you can get there. You can like us, you can follow us, you can be a member, become a member. This is membership month. We're looking at charter members, and we're excited to open this opportunity for physicians, for nurses, for healthcare practitioners, for child care practitioners who want to know more about what they can do to help support our children, and environmentalists, organizational environmentalists, as well as the planetary environmentalists. There's such a need out there, and that's the mission of the Sage Circle Alliance, is to meet that need. And we do that through the collective voice of our members. So with that being said, how's everybody doing today?
Fantastic.
Doing great.
Yeah,
I was
wonderful.
up early at the crack of dawn feeding our little menagerie of animals. We have a self-funded sanctuary here, you know, and I never thought of it as a sanctuary. I just thought it was, you know, we rescue animals. And Velyn, you're the one who said that once, and it's like, you know, it's true. And so this morning, as I was separating the chickens, because we have a bully chicken that picks on another chicken and doesn't let her eat, and the one who doesn't eat much, she's our newest one, and she had some kind of an accident recently, and so we've had to really take care of her. And that's something that children do need to be taught. I think it's great for parents to give skills to children about compassion to animals, because it all starts with when we're young and how we treat animals. As we grow, Are we going to make those animals a part of our family, or are we going to consume them, or are we going to be cruel to them? And teaching our children how to be kind to animals is very important.
Yes, it is. So, Paul, Meryl, do you want to jump in with some opening comments?
You know, when I was a kid, we didn't have a lot of animals. We didn't have a lot of pets, or we had like one pet at a time. And for a long time, I had a cat. It started when I was in third grade. But we didn't have a great deep connection to animals when I was in my house. They were more of a nuisance than anything, some sort of obligation. The kids bugged and bugged and bugged until we got in a pet. And then, of course, as it happens in a lot of households, the fun part of the pet, the kids want the fun part, right? They don't want the work part, right? The cleaning up and the feeding and the walking and the, brushing and the grooming. The kids don't want that part. So we didn't have a super deep connection to animals when I was growing up. That came very much later, very, very much later. And it was totally separate from my diving into plant-based eating. Plant-based eating for me started out about health, really. And it wasn't until very much later that I developed, and I'll be honest, it's with the dog we have now that I developed this very interesting relationship and connection and consideration for the animals in my life. I've been kind to them. I feed them and water them and, make sure they go out when they need to. And they're mostly, as an adult, they've been my husband's responsibility, his animals. But the dog we have now is a rescue or a rehome. She was living with one family for 3 years from very young puppyhood, and everything was going fine until it wasn't fine anymore where she was living. So she got rehomed. We took her in, and I have never had a connection with an animal like I have with her. She and I think together. Very interesting. She almost reads my mind sometimes, it seems. Sometimes I have the little thoughts or whatever, and she'll respond to the thoughts that I have. It's very interesting. So I guess I'm rambling a little bit, but my idea or where I am with it is that there's a way deeper connection that people could cultivate with animals than we actually usually do. We look at them as a source of food or clothing or, just today, I was going to my physical therapy appointment. I'm listening to public radio on my way, and there was a interview article about now with gene editing, we can use animals for organ transplants. So they have figured out how to edit the genes of pigs, and we can use pig kidneys to transplant into humans. So now there's this whole other use for animals. Wow. And the scientist, that was on this in this conversation on NPR was saying how, wonderful it is because pigs grow quickly and we can, use their body parts more. That's a
little scary. Oh my gosh.
If I may, Meryl, on that, I think I heard that same interview a short while ago, maybe 2-3 days ago. And the gentleman that got the kidney transplant that was a pig kidney, he died 2 months later. And so they're talking about how great it is that we've got this new technology. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. Kidney disease is often caused by lifestyle choices. Kidney disease is caused by type 2 diabetes, a lot of the things that we know can be prevented with healthy eating. And so rather than get to the core of the problem, like with virtually everything, what they're doing is they're saying, okay, you go on with your bad self and your lifestyle choices, and you become obese and you do whatever you need to do. And I'm not obese shaming. I'm not fat shaming. I'm talking about the reality of lifestyle changes that could could prevent the need for the kidney transplant.
In
And
the first place. Mhm.
in the first place. So here they are, they're coming up with a Band-Aid, a huge Band-Aid that they're spending millions
I
upon
was going to
millions, if
say
not billions of
Bazillions.
dollars.
Yeah.
And it's like, come on, folks, let's get to the core of the issue, which is compassion for animals, it's lifestyle choices, and it's the environment.
Compassion for self.
Yeah.
Compassion for self.
Lifestyles.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In fact, Kathleen, I sat in my car just now, right before my physical therapy appointment, and I sent them for that particular show. It's 1A, is the name of the show. You can send
Yes.
in questions, right? And I don't know. I mean, I have no idea how old the show is or when it first aired or if the questions actually go anywhere. But I sent them a question saying, what about the root cause of chronic
Good on
kidney
you.
disease? What are we doing about that? You know, rather than, oh, well, we have a ready supply of fast growing pigs that we can harvest their organs because heck, they don't need them.
Right,
We can use
right,
better.
right.
Like, wow, what a world. What a
Right.
world.
You know, the Band-Aid gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Then they
And
come
more
up with
costly.
medication. And it's
Mhm.
unfortunate because people believe that that's the solution. And that's a Band-Aid. That is not the solution. The
Mhm.
solution is really getting to the root of the problem. But we've been so misled on all of this. And that's why we're doing what we're doing. And that's why I love being a part of Sage Circle Alliance, because there are like-minded people that we're all wanting to raise the awareness.
Right.
Mhm. And
Right.
Paul, I know that you've got some comments for us. What are your opening thoughts?
But
Yeah,
don't interrupt, Paul. Don't interrupt, whatever you do.
if anybody needs to interrupt, just raise your hand. So for me, I have a couple thoughts. One is I find it fascinating because everyone loves their dog, their cat, whatever they may have. And I always kind of laugh because down deep, I think to myself, every time I went to a farm, the cows, the horses, the sheep, the goats, they were just as friendly to me as my dog and my cat was. Just as loving, just as needy, And I've always thought that, in the lottery of life, the dogs and the cats won the lottery and everything else did not. And, it could have been different. It could have been like people eating dogs and cats and just having a pet goat, pet pig, pet something. And they would have loved them. I find that interesting. That's number one. Number two is I never had a dog in my life until I got Sophie. I always show this because she is and will always be my first true love. I mean, true love. I'm married, very happy, 25 years. But I have made it clear to my wife that while Sophie was alive, don't ask me to choose. Because I never saw anything more devoted and more kind and more loving and such a little shadow. So I love, and I've always loved animals. And what I reflect back as a young kid was the first time I thought, man, people don't get animals. And it was something as crazy as, I had kids on the block who had magnifying glass and they thought it was great to burn ants off the cement,
Right.
or they would tie a string onto a fly so they could see the string move in the air. And when they were doing that, and this is me at 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, and I didn't have a magnifying glass. I didn't want to tie a string. I always thought to myself, like, not that I looked at them like at the same level as maybe a dog or a cat or a goat or a sheep or whatever. But I thought to myself, it's a living thing and they're torturing it. And I've often wondered, not that I'm going to look into it, but these same people who lived in my hood when I was a kid growing up, I wonder how many are alive or in jail, because I always thought that, like, if you could torture something, an animal, then what does it say as you as a human? Like, what are you going to turn out to be?
Right.
So when I think about animal compassion, I think of just the word compassion, because at the end, I want to try and be as compassionate to everyone I love, everyone I meet, every animal on the earth, planet. I just want to be a compassionate person. And I'm not, and I have not always been, but I have now been for a long time. And I kind of like this version of me right now,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
We do too.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're kind of a nice guy. You're kind
Well,
of a nice guy.
I am the chief empathy officer, and I
Yes,
take
you are.
it-
So proud.
I
So
wear
you have a label to live up to.
right. I wear it very proudly. But I just think that when I look at how the Sage Circle Alliance, what it means to me, I've spent 12 years in the world of human health. Period. Stayed in that lane. But I've always had a strong affinity to animal compassion. And, we only have one Earth. That's it, one planet to live on. So we have to be compassionate to the Earth, compassionate to everything that lives on it, which is us and every living being. And I think you'll find that if you join the Sage Circle Alliance, I am proud to say that of the almost 50 charter/founding members that we have, there isn't one of them that doesn't feel the same way.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And how often can you be around a tribe of people who lead with compassion?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I
Well
love
put.
that.
Yeah.
Reminded me of the times in my life when I can recall getting that God nudge about being more aware of the animals in my environment. I think I told the story of the chicken who, when I was younger, my mom used to send us to relatives in Virginia. They had a farm. And the day we got there, I'm getting out of the car, and this chicken comes up, and I notice it, it notices me, and I'm just going about my little girl business, and this chicken starts poking at me. And this poking at me frightened me. As a little girl, didn't know what it was all about. I mean, to the point where this chicken was chasing me around the yard. And I'm screaming and crying. And they finally get the chicken and they separate us. And I'm okay again. But we were there for 3 weeks. And I remember some encounters with the chicken. And the chicken stopped chasing me and just started watching me. And I thought that was curious, but I didn't really know how to interpret it. You just don't know how to interpret it as a youngster, especially if others, adults, don't interpret it in a manner that is compassionate. But I tell you, the next thing that I remembered that was traumatizing was the day before we were leaving. We had this great big feast, right? Corn on the cob and salad and collard greens and all of this delicious food, and this tray piled high with fried chicken. And I thought at first, oh, chicken. And then they started teasing me because this was the whole time I was there, I got teased about this chicken. We thought that you would so enjoy the fact that we have this chicken. It's now able to be eaten by you. I was sick. I was physically and emotionally sick. I went to bed without eating at all because I just could not fathom that this thing that I knew was a living being that chased me, got my attention, and they killed him, cut him up, fried him up, and served him on a platter for me to eat. I could not believe it. And that really did scar me for a while. I didn't eat meat for a while, but being in a family, I wouldn't eat if I didn't eat meat. So for a long time, I just didn't eat chicken. I was eating hamburgers and hot dogs. That was it. But fast forward to another childhood memory that I got nudged around was we had at the front of our house these beautiful rose bushes. And I remember the bumblebees that were in our yard. And these bumblebees would come in. I wasn't afraid of the bumblebees. I always admired them. And I thought, look at these big bellied things and they're so little. And, somebody said that they did a lot of good. And I would see people swatting them away. I'd move out of the way, right? and let the bee do his thing or her thing. And again, didn't really faze me as to the importance of bees to the planet. And, here I am just about to be 70 years old. And I have to tell you, in the last 10 years, so much has been opened up for me. My eyes have been opened to not just the value of every living thing on the earth. It has its purpose here.
Mm-hmm.
Like humans were meant to be stewards over these things. And, it's like reptiles eat things that they need for nourishment that are the control element for certain environments. And, this insect does for this thing, and spiders have their space and place. And, everything, this whole ecological ecosystem has its element of balance that we have not learned to understand, much less respect. And I think that is part of what has gotten us in trouble. And it just amazes me the number of kids who wake up and say, I thought about this, or I saw this in a movie, or I experienced this, and they want to talk about it. I'm like, let's talk about it. Help our kids to understand it so that they can, in fact, get the connection and the compassion. I have a dog. I've had him, he's going on 12 years old now. And when I think about how I used to eat meat, and then, think about it, would I eat my dog? No. Now, do I know that there are places in the world where people might sometimes eat dogs? I'm like, I just don't get that. But eat a cow, eat a pig. I was the bacon queen.
Mm-hmm.
When I got to this point, it was like, I cannot do that anymore. And it's important for us to really help our children to understand the encounters that they have. I know that they have them. We know they have them. I love hearing the stories that Meryl tells about going into the school and the interaction with the kids. And we need more of that. We're looking for the Alliance members who are also in that space and in that conversation, who want to grow it to another level. We are the people to lock arms with to help to do that. And, as you're doing that, you're getting more visibility out in the marketplace and in the world. And we're able to make a bigger difference for our humans, our non-human relatives, and the planet.
Absolutely. When you mentioned about the bees, the other day I was working in my garden, and for the last few years in Oregon, in our area, we haven't seen a lot of bees and nor butterflies. And I was doing some planting and getting the garden all set, and flower garden. And all of a sudden, there's all these bees that I started noticing. And I'm like, oh, yay. And I said, welcome, welcome, welcome. I mean, I was actually communicating with the bees, letting them know they were in a safe environment and that they are in a safe environment. And, so I love that you mentioned that, Bee-Lynn, because I think that people have lost touch with how important all the species are. And, I think about where I have noticed the best care of dogs would be the unhoused people. They take such good care. They do. It's like they'll feed their animal before they'll feed themselves. And it's really interesting that we can learn a lesson about caring for the animals. And a childhood memory I had was I used to bring animals home all the time. I'd bring frogs home, tadpoles, I'd bring tortoises, anything I could find I would bring home. Where my parents drew the limit was when I brought a rattlesnake home. It was a baby rattler. I didn't, I put it in a bag. With my foot, I pushed it into a little paper bag and I brought it home. I said, Mommy, look what I've got. And it turns out it was a rattler. My parents said, okay, that's where we draw the line. The other stuff, we can deal with it. I had a frog farm when I was a kid. My dad helped me build this really elaborate place where the frogs could live safely. And then when they grew to a certain level, we let them out and everything. But I have to say that my upbringing was such that my parents actually, I don't know if they tolerated my love of animals or they encouraged it. I don't know what it was, but I remember as a kid always finding animals that would follow me home. And I did have a situation when I was about 8 where we were at the grocery store and I so wanted a puppy dog that I stole a collar. And so I had a collar and a leash. And I told my dad, look what I found. And he goes, did you steal that? And I start crying. Yes, I did. He took me back to the store and he made me tell them what I did. And he forbid me from having a pet for a while because of the fact that he goes, you can't steal something to make it right. And so, I have to say that my dad taught me some good lessons in life. And I would say he probably was the best man that I ever met. He was a great dad and taught me some very important life lessons. And one was compassion to the animals. And as I grew and now I have a mini farm, when my dad used to come to visit before he passed on, he would actually cut up carrots and apples and do this nice little plate for the horses. And we're like, the horses don't know. And he goes, but I do. And he would spend all this time just doing kind things for the animals. And I think it was the life that he wanted that he never had.
Mm. Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah. Paul, tell us one of your childhood stories.
Animal stories or just any story?
Yeah, an animal story. Animal or environment.
Let's see. Paul tells a story. Okay. So I had a kind of a really cool job during my freshman year in college. I worked at Dr. Pet Center. So, I was my job was to sell dogs. Okay. It was just simply the more I sold, the more money I had for college. Plus, it was kind of cool because I got to be around 20 dogs, 20 puppies every day. But there was this one dog, and it was a dachshund. Now, I'm not saying, I've got my preferences of what dogs I like and what I don't. And dachshunds are, to me, interesting dogs because they don't care how big another dog is. They are little generals. I kind of like that about them. I do. But I really just like kind dogs. I mean, that's it. The only time I got bit a couple times, but one of them was with a little small dog. And I'll tell you the end of that story because that's actually kind of a funny one too. But when I would come to the pet store, as soon as I opened that cage up and it was, probably about 5 feet up, this dachshund would take a leap into my arms every single morning. I mean, think about it. Dachshunds shouldn't be jumping 4 to 5 feet off the ground. But this thing, I don't know what it had. Listen, I wasn't rolling in dog treats or anything like that. I didn't eat. This dog just liked to jump, I guess, or wanted out. But every time I made sure to catch it. And then when I had to go back to school, I remember being so sad trying to figure out how can I buy this dog? Because that's my dog. Like that's the dog I wanted, And my little funny little story is I remember about maybe 8 years ago, one of our plant-based nutrition support group members was talking to me and talking about dogs because I kind of, had my Sophie with me. And, we put her in the car. She goes, come here, you got to see my dog. And I'm like, okay. And she had her dog like in a really cute little area in the car, and she was in the front seat, had a nice pillow. And here I am. Now picture this. I got a white shirt and tie on because we just finished a speaking engagement. I went to her car, dropped my dog off into my car because I sometimes would bring Sophie with me because people were amazed that if I said sit, stay, she would never move until I said, okay, let's go. And it was kind of cool to see some dog not move for an hour. Just wait. Love that. So I'm looking at this lady's dog and I'm like, picture this. I'm like, oh, you're such a little cutie, aren't you? Because it was like 6 pounds, right? All of a sudden, wham, bit me right on the nose.
Ooh.
Like bit me. I kind of had to grab it off. The funny part's coming. I put the dog down, just put it down, but And so the funny part is what does this person say after the dog bites you? Like that was like here I am, white shirt, right? Blood everywhere, pants, shirt, all over me. Cause it caught me at a good place, right?
Right.
So she looks at me, she says, of course, dog's never bit anybody. That's number one. Number two is, don't worry, I gave her all the shots.
Gee, thanks.
Not how are you or what can we do?
Hey, this is the first time she got all her shots. And I'm like thinking to myself, yeah, right. When, it's like the golfer who hits a ball over your head and then apologizes to say it was the best shot of his life. Yeah, right. You know what I'm saying? Really. So, but it was kind of funny. She was a volunteer and she didn't know what was going to happen. But boy, was that a bloody little mess I created.
Oh my goodness.
But I mean, just like all animals, they all got their unique personalities, and it really doesn't matter. In the dog world, you got, like here, my son's got a pit bull, Zook. Well, I got news for you. First time I saw Zook, I didn't like pit bulls. I just didn't like him. Bad rap. Zookie is the sweetest dog I've ever been around, with one problem, just one. When I go to my son's house, he sits on the couch. Now, this is a 120-pound pit bull. And I'm looking at this dog going, hey, dog, I want to sit there. Okay, well, my son reminds me, this is his house, his rule.
You're a guest in his house. Yeah.
I mean, it is amazing that if you love any animal, my wife loves horses, for example, and she'll just sit there and just love on a horse. And I think if you just show compassion toward the animal, unless something's happened to it, all they want to do is love you. That's all they want to do is love you.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I wish, wouldn't that be something if everyone on this planet just wanted to love each other? Like really, just think about what would happen. The world would be such a happier place.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Paul, you just said something that reminds me of when we bring in a rescue animal, and oftentimes they just show up on our property because we live in an area where people will literally drop off animals thinking they can fend for themselves. And it's like, that's the worst mistake people can make. But with our dog, we have a pit shepherd mix. And when we first got him, he wouldn't look at us. He would shy away. And you never know what their history is. You never know what kind of abuse they've endured. And probably most of our animals have had a very rough upbringing. And the day that he actually looked at us and looked us in the eyes, and it was like a look of just pure love, then you know that they've crossed that invisible line, because we've had it happen with the horses. We have one horse that we call it cowboying the horse, where they get abused around their face a lot, that they're slapped around and everything. And that horse, when we first got her, she did not want to be touched on the face. And now you can actually stroke her on the face. But all animals that are rescues do have a history. And so it's important to keep in mind that they have to learn to trust you. And what I encourage people to do, rather than buying animals, go out and rescue animals. I mean, there's so many, and get your animal spayed and neutered. I think we just did an interview. I think it was for the NHA podcast, where Dr. Frank Sabatino interviewed a woman who runs a rescue. She has 140 animals, and they just did a huge rescue with 150 hoarded cats. And Dr. Sabatino asked her, do the animals breed on the sanctuary? She goes, absolutely not. She goes, we will find the funding to get them spayed and neutered, because we don't want to bring more animals into the world that could possibly be abused. And so I think the responsible thing, that's my opinion, that's my experience, is spay and neuter your animals so that you're not bringing more unwanted animals into the world. And even if they're wanted, there may not be the room. Shelters are crowded, they're overpopulated. And it's in a perfect world, we would have all no-kill shelters, but we're not in a perfect world. I mean, there are things, and it's interesting about eating dogs and cats. My sister and her husband, they're going with a group of people to Vietnam and Cambodia. And I said, I would highly recommend that you eat plant-based while you're there, because you might get a dog, you might get a cat, you might get a horse. And she goes, I've heard that. And I said, you might want to eat plant-based, because in other countries, there are things that we wouldn't do that they do.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
Yeah, that is such a great point.
Hey, did you, by the way, I don't know if you guys noticed this. I just caught it yesterday. Is it called, I've never been to this place, but it's very popular. Is it Chick-fil-A? Is it, or
Chick-fil-A?
Okay.
Chick-fil-A? You've
So-
never been to
I don't go to Chick-fil-A. Well, I have no
No,
reason.
I
to
mean,
go,
first
but
of all,
I've heard
of it though, yes.
I'm not going to be like, hey, has anybody heard of McDonald's or Amazon? Okay. So I,
No, what is McDonald's?
well, it's old McDonald. He had a farm, and now you have a farm. All right. So Chick-fil-A, when they started their business, their big selling point was, we are going to have no antibiotics in any of the chickens that you eat. Now, they had like a 3-letter VEM or EME, or they had a name, whatever it was. But
NBE, no biotics ever.
Yeah.
NAE, no antibiotics ever.
Right. Okay. So everyone was like, hey, I'm eating a clean chicken. This is awesome, And then those are the same people who'd wait a half an hour in a fast food line for this amazingly incredible chicken. I don't get it. But it was just announced that they're now the FDA, I'm not sure, is that the group that decides how much stuff gets poured into food to season it, taste it, make it bigger, quicker, stronger.
Mm-hmm.
But whoever that group is recently said, well, things have changed. We're done with the 3-letter that you just said, Meryl, and now they're laxing that. They're allowing it now that you can add antibiotics into feed for the animal that we eat. And you know how what happens is they eat, side note, you put bad stuff in the soil so you could get a bigger, quicker, better yield, like corn. So instead of getting 5 ears of corn, you could have 15 ears of corn. So already the corn's damaged. Something's wrong with it. Then you give it to the animals who are on steroids so they could be called, you ever see the size of these animals when they're all steroided up?
Mm-hmm.
So not only are they eating bad corn, but they themselves are roided up on whatever antibiotics to get them bigger, quicker. Then they put it all together and they give it to us humans. And you wonder why there's such a sickness in the United States and around the world. It's crazy. So now, as I said, Chick-fil-A is now what they said they'd never do. And the spokesperson for Chick-fil-A said, we did exactly what we said we'd do then, and we followed the guidelines. And now we're doing what the guidelines say we could do now. So come on.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a little bit to add to that, because I was listening to that story too. The way I heard it is that, and this, nothing in American industry is just straight simple, right? There's no one clean storyline. So Chick-fil-A has been getting their chicken products from Tyson Foods.
Tyson, yes.
Interestingly, now back a couple months, maybe it was a month or more ago, we
March.
saw the movie Christspiracy, which I would recommend anybody see. I'm not saying if it's right or wrong, or
What's it called?
True. It's Christ.
Christ?
Yes.
Christ.
Conspiracy.
Made by
Okay.
the same guy who did Cowspiracy and Seaspiracy.
Okay.
And What the Health. I think he also did.
He's going
Yeah.
to be doing one on pharmaceuticals as well very soon. That's the next project for them.
Interesting.
So anyway, in that movie, they talked about the connection between Tyson Foods and Chick-fil-A. Both of those are very Christian organizations. Now, I am not talking about anybody's religion. This is just the story.
This is
right?
the reality. This is the real.
Yes. Tyson Foods is the one who started with that no antibiotics ever thing, and Chick-fil-A picked it up, right? So that was their selling point, no antibiotics ever. They found, though, that without putting, so with no antibiotics ever, that meant the price of their chicken was higher because they had to do so much more to keep these chickens healthy because they weren't feeding them antibiotics to fight off infections that were likely going to occur due to the high level, high concentration living conditions that chickens were living in. Okay. Now they have found that whereas it's always been okay to serve antibiotics to chickens because it has, some valuable end result for the producers. Now they are going back to feeding antibiotics because it's just too dang expensive to continue with the no antibiotics, everything. So now what they're doing is it's like no antibiotics that are important for human health.
Right.
That's now.
Right.
Now, how do we know which
We don't.
antibiotics will ever be important for human health? We don't know. And is there a list that says which antibiotics we should or should not use to feed chickens because they're never going to be important in human medicine? We don't know. But that's what the storyline is now.
Yeah.
Now,
Meryl, you know what's amazing? Everyone, we just got to know Meryl and Paul a little bit today. So what you found was Paul was able to kind of just do a generic story, and Meryl, she took the time to get into the weeds.
Well, I'm going to get into the weeds a little deeper.
And then after you do, I want to get into the weeds about a few things.
Because what I have recently learned is that the FDA has also changed the guidelines on what is considered organic. So where we're thinking organic has been no pesticide, very low pesticide, they have increased the dosage of pesticides being able to be used and food still being able to be called organically grown.
Yeah.
And of course, that is not done for the benefit of human health. It is done for the benefit of dollars. And it is done for the benefit of dollars for those who don't funnel those dollars back into community. These are the dollars that are making the wealthy people wealthier to do things that are just what they do in the higher echelons of corporate America. And they don't care. So we have to care. And that's, I go back to, that is what's so beautiful about the Sage Circle Alliance, because we are the caring that's bringing awareness to all of this stuff. If it hadn't been for the conversation that we were in to bring this information up, and I was able to go and ask my friend, Dr. Google, to give me some more background info, I mean, how would we know this stuff? That is one of the reasons that we have progressed. And I digress for just a moment because a lot of our conversation has been on how is it that the whole food, plant-based, vegan movement has not moved as quickly as it could move over the past century, right? 100 years. I'll take it 50 years because the internet was not available to us. It didn't allow us the opportunity to communicate across the country, around the world, the way that we can now, and to forge connections and alliances like what we have available to us now through the SCA and other organizations, PBNSG, the National Health Association. We just have an opportunity now and it requires us to take more responsibility to educate ourselves, to educate ourselves, to know what we need to not learn, to unlearn, to say that I learned this and it was wrong. I'm sorry to me and to others. And then say, what is the real, like you were saying there? What is the truth that is really going to align us to go forward into the future? But even more than that, what is the truth that our children need to understand that they can take into their futures and be more compassionate leaders, more compassionate corporate employees or owners of those corporations or politicians, because we've missed the mark. And even medical professionals, when I look around, I go to the doctor, I go to, the visit somebody in the hospital, and I'm looking at the people who are working there, and they're in the same situation, battling with obesity and other chronic illnesses that they don't need, but they don't know because the information hasn't trickled down that far. Right. Or rippled out that far. And these conversations that we're having for the Safe Circle Alliance, with the Safe Circle Alliance, about issues, solutions, this is where we need more people to join us. And so if you are in this conversation, go to the website, safecirclealliance.org, see what we have available, and make the decision to join us. Or if it's not you, maybe you know someone that you can say, hey, I found out about this. You need to take a look at this and join us. And so that's me. Thank you, Kathleen.
Yeah. I want to springboard off of that, because a lot of times when people hear us give this information, they say, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. I've been called a conspiracy theorist because I've done a lot of research. And first of all, with the FDA, which they approve drugs and the prescriptions and all that, 45% of their funding comes from the very companies that they approve. So that's one thing that a lot of people aren't aware of. Another thing is the whole antibiotic resistance that many people have. If you're consuming a lot of factory farmed foods, the chickens, the pork, the cow, all of that, you're getting antibiotics by what you're consuming. So you're building a resistance to it. And it's really important to, Meryl, the other day you told me something, you told Lynn and I, that was shocking about the chicken dung that is being fed to cows. And I'm like, okay, let me do my research. 21 days before a cow is going to be slaughtered, they have to stop eating the chicken dung. And so I did some research on it. I found some articles that were from reputable organizations. I checked who was the funder of the article and the research. And as it turns out, these cows are being fed this literally crap, and that's going into their system, that goes into your system when you eat meat and dairy. And I told this to somebody, and they go, that can't be true. And I said, it is true. And they go, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. And it's like,
I don't want to know.
That's what's keeping people sick. And so we have to start with us, first of all, and then we have to work with the children, and we have to work with the elderly people, because look what's happening to our elder population, even though I qualify as an elder because I'm above 65. I just hit 70 last week. And it's like, oh my God, I'm an elderly woman. But my job is to break the stereotype. But quite seriously, look at the number of people who have what's now called type 3 diabetes. That is dementia and Alzheimer's. And it's brain inflammation. And if you're putting things into your system that are inflaming your body, no wonder we have the challenges we do. So it really does start with what you put on your plate. And I love what you said, Lynn, about organic. Now it's a whole different classification. And we live in an area where we truly have organic farmers. I mean, they are like 100% organic. And there's a place where I go get corn when it's finally ready. And my handyman, he keeps calling me every day. He goes, it's almost ready. Just another few weeks, almost ready. And we go down and we actually go into the cornfields and we pull our fresh corn. I'll eat anywhere from 6 to 10 ears of corn a day when it's fresh off the stalk. So anyway, I just wanted to add that information, that sometimes when you hear something, it sounds so far removed from reality. That is our reality. It's dystopia at its best.
It's interesting as we're sharing stories about things that we hear. I also, and this, call it animal gossiping or industry guy. And I kind of like it.
That'd be a good column name. This is Animal Gossip This Week.
Yeah, I'm just, we're here amongst friends. So I just read something where there was a contest for the best tasting cheese in America. And it was,
that was probably in Wisconsin, wasn't it?
it had to be, Meryl. Or it could be in Michigan, the second biggest dairy producer. We'll go with Wisconsin, Meryl. So it was sponsored by the Dairy Association, right? Makes sense, right? But word got out that the best tasting cheese was a vegan cheese.
Ooh.
And they were going to win until somehow the person who was going to enter this vegan cheese got kicked out of the competition.
Mm-hmm.
They were.
Pardon me?
Because they were bad.
They weren't. They did not like the idea of a fake cheese beating a regular type cheese.
Real cheese.
Real cheese.
Real.
Wow.
In the best tasting competition of cheese.
Wow.
And,
like the ingredients that go into vegan cheese aren't real.
Right. And just my last little thought today is that what you were saying is that it was a pure money grab on the whole chicken thing. It was, they lightened the load of the cost to allow other things to make bigger, quicker chickens because the price of chicken is going, was too much. So, for people. So, if I guess if you're going to have chicken, have organic chicken, but there's a cost to that. But again, and by the way, one last little thing. Isn't it funny how every once in a while they do a drone over an animal slaughterhouse or where they have, animal, like food farms, where they have Brazilian animals. What's that?
CAFOs. Concentrated animal feeding operations. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So every once in a while you'll see, the area around it where it's got like yellow or pink rivers, and it's just like a disgusting mess. And if anybody drove through like Kansas, Iowa, whatever, and you go, whoa, what is this smell? And you come upon a place where they have cows, and you're like, holy moly, they got like 10 bazillion cows in such a little area. You look at all this stuff, and to me, it's just so funny because, like, how is that compassionate? How is that? How is that compassion? And then they were saying something about how the animals know what's going on.
Yeah.
Their stress point is off the charts, which doesn't help make them tastier, probably worse.
Right.
They're fighting tooth and nail to stay alive because they know that they're being led to slaughter.
Right. And so again, I just keep thinking as we started today's talk was about compassion, about just like if you have a choice, you could be a prick, an asshole, or compassionate. Okay. Those are your three choices. I like compassion.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when you say bigger, quicker on the chicken, it made me think that people are getting bigger and they're getting sick quicker as a result of what they're eating and the lack of compassion. And it always amazes me when people claim to be compassionate to animals. They rescue animals. They love animals. I worked in the pet industry for a while. And I have to say, I was shocked when I went to the first conference and on the plates were salmon, filet mignon, chicken. And I'm like, that doesn't seem to fit. And yet it's that cognitive dissonance where people really don't connect the dots. And when you give them information to connect the dots, they say you're forcing your lifestyle on us, or we don't want to hear. And the reality is that there is so much going on right now that people do need to hear. They do need to open their eyes. They do need to understand that if we don't change things, there's the next generation is going to have so many strikes against them that it's going to be just about really, really chaotic survival. And we can't do that to our children. We have a responsibility to bring awareness to a very important issue, which is compassion to animals through what we do on a daily basis, what we eat, and the lifestyles that we live.
You know, when I have the chance to work with children, they are not motivated by weight loss or
Right.
by preventing heart attacks or by lowering their cholesterol or any of those things. That doesn't land anywhere near like it's an important issue for a 10-year-old. But what you can get them to agree to is that the rainforest is being destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
And in the
Mm-hmm.
rainforest, there are X number of animals. Here's Andrea. X number of animals
Hey,
who
Andrea.
are being affected by the deforestation in the rainforest. You will also hear them very upset that the rainforest is being destroyed to produce feed for cattle or it's a grazing area for cattle. So the last time I think I told this story already, because it's such a recent experience, it's really, really very fresh for me. Last month, we were talking about, with the kids, about the rainforest and deforestation. And by the time we were done, and the teacher did a great job of filling in the blanks and getting the kids ready for this conversation, that when we arrive, just what we do is we just go in and, you know, teach a small lesson. We play some games and we feed them whatever we're going to feed them. By the end of the lesson on the rainforest, I literally had 3 or 4 kids who said, I don't want to eat meat anymore.
Wow. Wow.
I don't want to help deforest the rainforest. I don't want the orangutans to have nowhere to live. You know, that is what speaks to children.
Right.
So when we talk about, you know, how do we get our children? What do we do with them? How do we make sure that they're prepared for their responsibilities, you know, coming forward as citizens and contributing to the society and things like that? I think that's one of the best things we can do, is teach them the impact that our food system has on the world, not only just other, you know, our own health, because they don't care about that, but on the world and on the other planet, on the rest of the planet, the rest of the animals, and equip them. I mean, in a way, it's like teaching them a little bit about critical thinking. So if we know that palm oil is raised in areas where they've clear cut the rainforest, right? Palms are grown there. There's something you, little 10-year-old, can do about that. You can stop eating things or stop purchasing things that have palm oil in them, right? You could write a letter to Mr. Chick-fil-A or Mr. Taco Bell or Mr. Kentucky Fried Chicken. Yum Brands is a big one, right? You can write letters to those presidents of those corporations and make your feelings known. That is such a powerful lesson for kids who are suffering from what we call eco-anxiety, this worry about the environment and worry about what's happening to the planet. So, I mean, if we could do anything to prepare our children, of course, encourage them to think critically about what they're doing and the impact that their actions have on the rest of the world. More than 5 minutes from now, right? Think beyond, as my mother used to say, and let them know that there's something that they can do about it. They do have agency in that. They have resources, they have recourses, right?
They do. And a lot of times that agency, learning that they have agency in that, learning that they have a voice in that, is not something that they learn at home.
Right.
And so another reason why the work that we do here at the Sage Circle Alliance is so important, because we know that we are the influencers that not only have the ability to influence our children, but we have the opportunity to influence the adults that then can also influence the children. I know that there are a lot of opportunities that don't get recognized. We don't think about where, we've got a class outing. where are we taking the kids? To Coca-Cola, to
Right.
go see the
Wonder Bread.
generations of Coca-Cola that has no benefit to anyone but Coca-Cola.
Right.
Whereas there are so many sanctuaries in the Atlanta metro area that a class trip could go to and really experience what it looks like to be out, not just in the environment, but with the animals. And I say, take it another step farther. You know, if they're old enough to do something, let them experiment with mucking out a stable, understanding, but learning at the same time, not just doing it to be doing it, learning the importance of that. What happens with those excrements once they're mucked out of the stables? What happens to, even feeding them? Bale some hay in there. You know, don't want to do that. Bale the hay in. Help them feed the animals. You know,
We've got opportunities at our place.
I love the story about how your dad came and cut up the carrots and
Yep,
celery
yep.
or whatever else and went out to feed that. That is an experience that,
Mhm.
I looked at having the opportunity to do. I was so afraid of the animals, and nobody would say, "Oh, these animals are wonderful. They'll love you." What I realized is they didn't want to get that close to the animals because they were breeding them to kill them.
Right. Right.
And we have to educate everyone, from our
Mhm.
educators to our medical professionals, the doctors and nurses that are caring for these children. At the conference that we went to in March, I met a woman who was there from the Children's Hospital here in Atlanta. And I said, "Oh my goodness, what is the environment like in the Children's Hospital?" She said, "That is exactly why I'm here. I'm an
Mm.
advocate to change what's going on in the Children's Hospital because what I see is sometimes just feels so atrocious to me."
Mm.
And I'm like, I've got to connect with this person and stay connected because you never know what you're able to do to help them to help make that change
Right.
within that institution. And I think that, it's like one thing at a time, and it's going to take its time. But the more we do it as a collective body, and maybe we say the month of July, we're going to have this focus on reaching into children's hospitals and posing the question, what's on your menu? And really elevating that conversation. And if everybody that's a member of the Sage Circle Alliance does that, what kind of an impact could we make? A press release goes out and says, members of the Sage Circle Alliance look at the month of July as Children's Hospital Impact Month. And members are going into these hospitals and asking the question about what's on these kids' menus and really making a difference. And, it's being noticed. And we can tell because you were just interviewed by NBC News.
Yes.
And did a clip
Right.
about the state of Illinois having now a law that plant-based options must be offered in every school. And so schools are figuring it out so that they can be in compliance. But what would that mean if every state had that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, this has been an amazing conversation. I love these dialogues that we have. And, as you were sharing, V-Lynn, it reminds me of when parents say, "Oh, but it's so hard to get my kids to eat healthy." And the question I have is it harder to get them to eat healthy and give them, introduce them into that way of life? Or is it going to be harder when they get an illness that could have been prevented and you're spending a lot of time at the doctor? That's a reality we live with. So thank you all for what you're all doing. And for those who have been watching, thank you so much. We appreciate your time and attention. Check out Sage Circle Alliance. You'll be glad you did. If you are in the lifestyle or thinking about the lifestyle, if you have a business that has anything to do with plant-based, vegan, the environment, please check us out. Join us. It's a great organization and we've got lots of things going on. So with that, I'll zip it up and I'll turn it over to the powers that be.
I think you pretty much said it all. This has been a great conversation. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you. Take care.
It
Yeah.
has been. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
again.